Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew? Here. Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here.
We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. There was a new agenda put in front of you with the rummage sales on there for the signs. Other than that, there's no changes. Do you have any questions? Do I have a motion on the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to the approval of the manifest, 2019-10. Scott, any questions?
I just have,
Wait, Scott. Move on to the approval of the minutes first. Any questions on the minutes? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes of the regular meeting of April 15th, 2019.
support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Now we'll move on to the approval of the manifest. Scott?
I just have one, Ray, looking at pretty much every department we have for the regional safety program. Is it everybody in every department covered under that, or do we just send a couple of people? What is that?
It's based on the number in the department. So
Okay.
it's do we have a rate for the fire and, let's see, the police as well, because there's only two in the police, because it's during day shift.
Okay, that's all I have.
Brett?
Page 5 of 9, communication fund. Guess it's more of a question for Mary. Invoice corrections, them are increases from them months? About midway down, it's November, December, January, February?
Yeah, they did a change in their billing system and we had some issues dating back to those months that we met with them a couple times to make sure we had everything matching. So that's what just correcting those months.
Okay.
No additional charges, they were just not charged at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Lee?
Yeah, one item here, second page, halfway down, general fund, police department. Computer expense, new PC for chief, is that something that was budgeted, Ray? I don't remember if that was.
That was in the budget?
It was, okay, I couldn't remember if it was. So what do they do with the old computer on that? It's just
It's scrap.
It is scrap?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. What happened was we were running an old version of Windows, and they aren't servicing that version anymore, and so we had to upgrade, and his computer couldn't handle the upgrade.
Okay, that's all I have.
Jeremy?
Nothing.
I have a couple. Okay, on 6 of 9, under the electric utility, the operation of stream gauging station for $12,660. Is that, Mary, is that yearly or bi-yearly?
That 12,660 is for 6 months.
It's for 6 months?
They usually bill us quarterly, but they missed the billing, so they billed us for 2 quarters.
That's why the amount was so much? Okay. And then on 7 of 9, under wastewater, Hall's Hardware Shipping, $168.56. What was that for?
I'll have to check, I'm not sure.
Okay, and then I have another one.
Is that, Larry, just, I don't know if you, does he send in his samples? Does it go out of there?
I don't know if he does. That could possibly be those, did he ship back those EQ mixers? That we had to pay to ship back on the project? Because it was 170 to ship the new ones, that's what just made me think it might be that.
Okay, well, I'll check on that.
Okay, and then, a little ways more down, gunner welding, 55-gallon barrel holder. And then the one right, there's two there for gunner welding. What is that for?
The second one, I'm trying to remember what the second one was for. I'll have to double check on that.
What about the 55-gallon barrel holder?
Yeah, that one he had, they were looking at doing a test in order to find a flow for some sampling, which we're still trying to schedule that test. It's to schedule the flow for in the SCADA system, and they don't have a meter, you know, to tell you what the flow is, so they have to do a manual test to see over a period of time how much flow they're getting, and so that's what the holder was for that test.
Okay. And then, B&B electrical upgrades, $3,111. What are we upgrading down there? Since
Well,
we're
that was
stuck
part
in
of
the
that,
top?
that was part of a previous approval, that was part of that project,
It was part of the project?
yeah.
That was that, they installed that heater.
Yeah, that was a heater, the heater unit in the chemical room,
Okay.
and then the outlets out in, they had a couple outlets there.
But that was part of the project?
That was part of the project that we approved, and we have to send it in.
What do you mean project?
That was a separate motion. It's for electrical outlets outside, because they're running extension cords, and then it's also for the heater in the room that was alongside, but we approved that separately.
Right.
On a separate motion. And
If we still have available funds, we're gonna try and run it back
Yes.
through the project.
Okay,
That's what I was trying to get at.
okay. All right, if there's no other questions, do I have approval on the manifest 2019-10?
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2019-10 in the amount of $563,273.08.
Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Anyone wishing to address the council on any agenda item shall do so now at the podium. State your name and address for the record. We'll move on to communication. Oh,
Mark Poblani, 1051 Murray Road, Norway. I see that the city is looking to purchase a mini excavator for the electric department. I did notice that they've spent 98, or not, just about 98,000 on a trencher and 12,000 on a trailer. I'm hoping that they reconsider this option here, because you do have, to my understanding, still a big project down at the electric department, and you seem to be stocking the electric department with new equipment. So I'm hoping that, that if they purchase this other equipment, that if we have trouble at the hydro, that it doesn't relate into a rate increase in electric, because I don't think the citizens can afford a lot of that being a fixed income.
and as you know, Mark, when you were on the council, we put off a lot of this equipment because we took out of that fund to do the streets, and they've needed it for years. And it's all coming up at one time because we didn't have the money at that time to do it.
There was a trencher that was there. I know it's in disrepair, but I've tracked that when I was on the council, and typically they put less than 20 hours a year annually on that trencher, because it's basically used for new installs of new homes, underground power, because all the houses in town here basically have above ground power. And the trencher is a major expense for maintenance.
Yeah,
And
I
as
wouldn't,
far as
I wouldn't
the-
have the answer to that because I
And
don't
as
work
far
in
as
the electric
excavator,
department.
The excavator is not replacing a piece of equipment, it is a new piece of equipment. Or I don't know if it's an actual new excavator, but it's not replacing an existing one.
Mark,
Thank you.
if our project goes right, we're gonna need that big time out Oak Crest area, the acreage we have out there to sell those homes, and they're gonna need that.
You do have a backhoe that you just got rebuilt for thousands of dollars. And the mini excavator is typically used, I have one. The mini excavator is typically used in tight quarters, and there's no homes out there right now. So that you have a big excavator, and you also have the one that's a part of the Public Works Department.
Maybe you'd like to rent yours to us so we wouldn't have to purchase
I
one.
don't think you need one.
Well, that's your opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Now we'll move on to communications. Move on to approval special event, the 15th Annual Veterans Tribute Ride.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. We received this request for the tribute ride, and Mr. Bill Muscati, representing the Veterans Organization for the 15th Annual Veterans Tribute Ride, gave us the application. It'll be placed on Saturday, May 25th. They're requesting to block the 600 block of Main Street for the event. It'll be held at the American Legion. So as part of the event's application process, any action involving city property, of course, the right-of-way would involve council approval. I do know that it has received a lot of attention over the last week or two as far as support, and I think it'll be good for, definitely good for the community. One note is that we did talk to the organizers and mention that they should go and talk to Mike's on Main and some of the businesses on that block, you know, to make sure that it's well coordinated. You know, if you're blocking the traffic and the parking, you want to make sure that the businesses are not overly burdened or impacted as best we can. There is a couple public parking lots, and we want to make sure then we also work with signage so people know where to go, where to park.
Yeah, you answered my question there, Ray. I was wondering if Mike's on Main had been approached.
Yeah,
The other areas on that block, there's no problem.
Yeah, I don't have confirmation that they had
And
it,
it's
but I
gonna
did
bring, and it's gonna bring people into town. They're talking as many as 300 bikes. I mean, they're not just all gonna go and sit in the Legion and do their thing.
Is there any other questions?
I just was curious if Jim Schaefer was, or Officer Schaefer was up to date, and if there was any issues with him about it at all.
He's up to date, for sure. He was probably informed before we were. I think they went to the police department first. So he came to us, asking about what the procedure was to verify that. And definitely, he's had his comments, you know, involved and will be involved, so.
Yeah, my concern was just if the other businesses had been contacted, because that's 5 hours that they're not going to have the traffic that they would normally have.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the application be approved.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Move on to the approval, electric department equipment purchase, compact excavator. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, as was previously mentioned, the electric department has submitted a request for a mini excavator. And just to confirm, this is a new piece of equipment. We're not replacing something. I just wanted to make on record, though, a note that it was said that the current backhoe that we have, we put thousands of dollars in. We did replace the back end with a rebuilt back end, but as we talked about in past meetings, past sessions, that the front end is going and that it is in disrepair. Now, let's also note, though, that this excavator is not to replace the backhoe in any means. I think it's rightfully pointed out that they have different purposes, but this is a request out of the department, and it's for council's consideration.
With the as Mark brought up with the projects that we got going on, the other problems we've had at the dam, with the fact that we have other equipment that's cool, like the backhoe that needs to be replaced. I've got some issue with buying a new piece of equipment that's not a replacement at this time. I don't know that, I don't think this is the right time to be buying new equipment. Replacing equipment we have that we use, yeah, I'm fine with that, but I don't know that this is the right time to be adding more equipment.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I would just like to see us get through the major part of the projects. You know, bring this to us at a later date, like this year, I have no issue, just so I know. Right now, we're kind of sitting in a no man's stage.
Yeah, we will, we do plan on bringing all of that through budget hearing, and, you know, as far as like appropriating, you know, the equipment replacement or equipment purchase, the project will be completed October of, so I mean, it could be even in this next budget year if everything turns out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a little hesitant about spending anything outside of that, the hydro itself, because of our issues down there. Hopefully we won't have any more, but I know they need it, they could use it, but again, it's something I'd kind of like to hold off on until things are up and running down there.
In the past, I know we've talked about combining DPW and electrical fund for a new backhoe in the future. I guess I'd be more in favor of that. And, you know, actually, how many hours would we need a mini excavator for? You know, and what kind of projects would we need it for? I would like to see that before I'd be okay with it as well.
Was the DPW supposed to use this too?
I'm sure they utilize each other's equipment. You know, if a fund does, we don't have an equipment fund, so an individual department purchases equipment, and then there's a rental rate that is applied against that from another department that utilizes it. So they do share across. I think that's understood with all the departments. So it's just a matter of, you know, whether this piece of equipment is necessary for other operations within the departments as well.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Can you just make a motion to table it? No, just turn it down.
I'll make a motion, we deny the purchase of the John Deere 26G compact excavator at this time.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
We'll move on to Resolution 2019-09, Arbor Day.
This is an annual, this is an annual resolution that we put together. It's a part of our requirement for the Tree City designation that we receive. We utilize this designation on applications for grants and other programming. I do realize that this is kind of ex post facto based on the actual Arbor Day was last Friday, but the situation came up where we had missed getting this resolution out early April, so it's still important to have the resolution recognizing that. Also, I want to point out that we typically handle programs with the school celebrating Arbor Day well into May, you know, depending on the school schedule. So we are planning a planting project with 5th and 6th graders. We're also planning a presentation with the K through 4, which should happen, maybe it might even be a little bit after Memorial Day for the presentation. So we're requesting council consideration for the resolution.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, resolution 2019-09 be approved, designating April 26, 2019 as Arbor Day in the city of Norway.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move back up to approval, Fire Department Communication Tower Equipment Upgrades.
Okay, this is something that we've talked about previously as well. We received all the information regarding the equipment and the cost to move equipment and what were the best options. And then we also were waiting to hear from North Alert because they contribute half towards the equipment and installation. So North Alert, I believe, had their meeting last month, and I'm not...
I wasn't there, but I am not 100% positive, but I think this all went through, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't officially notified that they agreed to that, but this is something that has been done in the past. I want to point out, too, that the reason we're talking about moving this equipment is because it's on the old fire tower, and the old fire tower, we were notified earlier this year that the company that owns that is looking at taking that down and had requested us to consider our options. They had a tower up next to, or they have a tower, the new tower that's up next to the old fire tower, was one option that they wanted us to investigate. But we actually have a 100-foot pole tower that we use for our AMI, and we can put it on our own tower. So that's something we're recommending. Also, the equipment that we're recommending is actually new equipment. It was actually more costly to move the old equipment, and that old equipment is 10-plus years old. So there is one piece on the base that we're going to move over, the repeater, but outside of that, this is new equipment. So the total cost for the equipment and the move is $3,627.80, half of which will be paid by North Alert, so our out-of-pocket will be $1,813.90.
As I recall, the fire tower, Norway Fire Tower LLC, has agreed to demolish our old equipment for us when they take the tower down?
That is correct. That's correct. They said that that's common, that when they come down, they just take it with it. So I've been in communications with them. They've given us through the end of June for our lease agreement, so there's quite a seamless transition.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that Elcom Communications be approved to provide the communications equipment to the City of Norway Fire and North Alert Ambulance for a price not to exceed $3,627.80, of which the city will be responsible for $1,813.90.
Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Or wait, Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Move on to the approval, Strawberry Lake Improvement Phase 2. Mr. Anderson?
All right, giving you a full report in your packet. We did have a bid opening for our Strawberry Lake project. This is Phase 2, since if you remember last fall, we kicked off with Phase 1, which was the baseball fields. We wanted to get that started last fall. So this is the remainder of the project. Carissa Roll from Coleman Engineering is here tonight that she can answer any specific questions on the bidding process, but we did open bids April 9th. We only received one bid. We looked at the bid package was complete and acceptable. The actual bid total for the project after we evaluated, we're actually slightly under the total overall engineer's estimate for the project. We brought this bid tab and report to the Parks and Recreation Committee at its April meeting. They also reviewed the bidding process, the bid tab, and they recommended that council accept the bid. So it's for council consideration this evening, and I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions?
It's just nice to see the project get moving.
It's been a long, tedious process. One question, Ray. Our share, how much of that will be in kind? Can we make all of that?
I'm not sure we'll be able to make all of that. I'm thinking that we'll be probably able to make about 80% of that.
Okay. And most of that will be the electrical, right?
Yeah, but we have, we're providing the gravel.
Yeah.
And we'll get a good in-kind for the gravel component. And we'll be spreading the gravel for the parking lot, so that'll be some work that we do. So,
Okay, that's all I have.
There are a couple of cash items. We have a couple benches that we have to purchase, similar to what we did at Tennis Court.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that the proposal from Wright Electric Company, Inc. be approved for the Strawberry Lake Improvements Phase 2 for a price not to exceed $189,553.61.
Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Move on to the approval request purchase city-owned property.
On this particular request, this is a standard procedure policy. If you remember back from 2011, city implemented its sale of property policy, where if a resident requests consideration, they fill out a form and submit it to council. Council then reviews that request with some basic information staff puts together, and then if you're okay with proceeding, it's not an approval of the purchase. What it is directing staff to proceed with further, any further, I guess, requests or comments, or moving forward with the paperwork, so to speak. The resident is required to pay for all closing costs and all costs associated with this effort. On this particular case, Mr. Keith Burkhardt put together a request. If I showed you his map, there's a very small section, about 500 square feet, that he's asking to square off his property. If you look at the map that I provided, he has a jog in his back property. Unusual part of this request is that there's actually two owners. This is out of the sections that we had from the old chair factory, which we worked with Habitat for Humanity on. They now own the old chair factory property and are still looking to put a project back on that property. There's no 20-foot alley. I guess it's not right-of-way, though. It actually has a property number, so I'm not sure what happened way back in the past, but I think it was set aside for right-of-way, but it never was made right-of-way. So it's actually a 20-foot section of city-owned property. And so there's actually two components to his request. Now, I did contact Habitat on his behalf. Did manage to talk to somebody there, the executive director, and verbally they said they didn't have any issue, and they just want to work with the residents in the area, so they really didn't have an issue. So it's up to council if you're okay with us moving forward with investigating and making this happen.
In general, I don't have an issue with moving forward with our part of the property. I do have an issue because we can't give the okay to give away Habitat's property.
Right.
And before I would approve anything, I'd want to see at least something in writing from Habitat saying something along the lines of, if we approve allowing him to have our piece, then they'll approve that piece, or something along that lines anyway, or have him deal with Habitat first. Just because we can't give away Habitat's property.
Understood.
Anybody else? So is there a motion? Okay.
We'll make a motion that we move forward in the process to allow the sale of the city-owned property. Is that sufficient?
Contingent upon Habitat for Humanity putting in writing.
Yeah, contingent upon Habitat Humanity putting in writing that they're willing to sell their piece as well.
Support.
Is that Pop? Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
No.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
We'll move on to approval of non-union pay scale.
Okay, this is a Rev 1 of our current pay scale resolution. The only change that we're making or requesting consideration is that because of the minimum wage increases, and we talked about this again last year, that we're now bringing on summer employment, and that we have $10 an hour for the Parks and Rec starting pay, and we're requesting that to be moved to $11 an hour.
Is there any questions? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that resolution 2019-10 be approved.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Abstain.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr.
Anyone wishing to address the council on any item of interest?
Special.
Oh, I keep skipping stuff tonight. Special events, annual citywide rummage sale.
Okay, this last item, again, I apologize for not having it on Friday, something that we picked up this morning, but it's something that we need to do before the next council meeting because the event is happening on the 18th. Annually, we look at this event. Of course, this is a wonderful event for the community. Council suspends the sign ordinance from Thursday through Sunday during this time for the rummage sale signs. So it's important for council to take that action this evening to approve the application, and then that's what be part of the application. So signs can come out on Thursday, the 16th, and they need to be picked up by Sunday, May 19th. 6 p.m. Sunday, May 19th.
I don't have any problem with this. Every year, I know it's congestion, but it brings business to our city, so anything that brings business in, I'm for.
I think it's been going, what now, 26, 27 years now?
Okay.
I know it's over 25. And like Mrs. Brew said, anytime you can bring people into town, for whatever the reason, it's good.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that the application for the annual citywide garage sale be approved for May 18th, 2019, and that the current sign regulations be modified per the following rules. Temporary signs can be installed on Thursday, May 16th, must be removed by 6 p.m. Sunday, May 19th. Signs shall not be placed on permanent signs, signposts, light posts, utility poles. Temporary signs shall not be allowed on Main Street from 4th Avenue to Railroad Avenue, which includes Pocket Park, all bump outs, and/or US 2 Main Street intersection. All signs must have address clearly marked on sign, and the violations of these rules will be removed immediately by the police department and will be subject to littering ticket per the littering ordinance.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Anyone wishing to address the council on any item of interest shall do so now at the podium. State your name and address for the records. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person.
Mark Kotlani, 1051 Murray Road, Norway. I was curious, Ray, if anything ever took place on the old Wabar property, that when the city purchased it, prior council, there was arrangements for Habitat to take that over and build homes on it? Is that-
We're still waiting for Habitat. They wait for their grants. That's why, like, even the Chair Factory, they haven't moved on it. They wait for, when they get the right grants to be able to move. So, they're still interested, just they haven't been able to do a
Do you think it
project.
would be a wise move to, I know what the city had into that property is to donate it to them with a 2-year stipulation that they'd have to build the houses? Do you think that would speed it up? Speed up the building of the houses to get the tax money and utility base a little higher?
I'm sure it would. I can't talk for them, though, based on if they get their grant for it. But yeah, that's part of it. Just like out at the Chair Factory, the utility extensions is what's holding them up, because they use their grant monies for for the houses, but if they're using that grant money for the utilities, then they don't have the money for the houses. You know, same thing with the property. If they use the grant money for the property, then it takes away the grant money that they use for the house.
Okay. And I was also interested to see why the golf course property for the homes, residential, has not been listed on any realtor or aggressively being promoted to be sold. It's building season right now. I do think the city's missing out on utility-based taxes and possibly increase in enrollment in the school.
We had already
It's been a
talked
couple
about
years,
that,
I mean, they've
right?
been lotted off.
We talked about having a
About
realtor,
possibly
yeah.
listing it, yeah.
That's all that.
Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to mayor or council comments. Scott?
I just have one question, Ray. I see that I've been spending a lot of time out at Marion Park. We have, in the old tennis courts, we had talked about this last year about making it into a basketball court or whatever, and I see that the poles are out there.
The poles are there. We're waiting for the freeze thaw, and we need to pop a hole and put the hoops up.
I have talked to a lot of the youth, and they're excited about it.
Good.
You know, they're excited to be out there where they're not in town where they have to worry about, 8 o'clock, they have no lights at the school where they play now. So the youth is very excited about having that out there. That's all I got.
Brett?
I was just gonna bring up the same thing as what Mr. Babalani did, marketing the property out at Oakcrest and looking to see what it would take to go through a realtor. There's a couple parts of city property that I think we should look at doing that too, throughout.
We've had realtors, different realtors in the past. In fact, I've got a couple members from the DDA and Planning Commission that have also been asking and actually
that's what was
talking
going
about helping with making decisions to help council make decision on the best way to go with the realtor. Some are a little more aggressive and proactive, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So I would hope that within the next, short period of time here that we could.
Yeah,
with
we
their
really
help,
should
we
have
can
them
move on
up.
that.
Okay. And then, my second question is the hydro project. Where are we at with the restart date?
That is May 13th. We're planning to have that, we're all set to go for them to mobilize. And like I said, that should run through September. So right around the end of September, they should be done. So we're a little concerned. The water has come down. That's what's held it up is obviously the river flow. It has come down. They've cut back again today. But they're expecting some rain this weekend. So we're a little nervous about walking in on Monday. It's what we have, but I think we're down enough where it should be a safe project.
Yep, I'm clear.
Lee?
I just want to remind everybody that baseball season is in full swing. Little League is starting this week. I was out there tonight for a while, and there were almost 100 cars out there. So, I mean, that place is really being utilized. I feel it's one of the nicest recreation areas in the whole UP. And question, Ray, when we hire Balls or Becks or whoever to cut grass for somebody because of the nuisance, and then we get billed, we pay it, and we collect the money from the homeowner, how is that working out, collecting this money from the homeowner? Do we have to slap it on taxes, or?
If they don't pay, we have to send them.
They don't pay.
It goes against their taxes.
How is that collection coming, Mary? Do you know offhand?
Usually pretty good.
Pretty good.
If they don't answer the first or second, then once you usually tell them it's going to be leaved on the property, then they should pay.
Oh, okay. And just one other thing, FYI, next week, May 12th through the 18th is National Police Week, and that's all I have.
With the hydro, how does the repair holding up that we did on, was it 4? 3 or 4?
Good so far. 4.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's good so far.
That was my only question.
The only thing I had too, I was gonna ask when Lita Strobe and them were gonna be back in. And hopefully everything goes as well as the last one they did and works out as good, and we're making more generations, so hopefully That all happens with this one. Mr. Anderson?
The only thing I'll follow up on what Lee said about the baseball, my big concern when the baseball starts is with that many people, there's a lot of activity, so just be careful in and around Marion Park area with a lot of that activity. Even on US 8, just be careful when you go through, so, forget.
When does the highway shut down?
Yeah, I know.
The bridge?
May 28th.
May 28th?
Yeah, and again, reminder that the bridge on US 8 will be closed May 28th through September, so through the fall.
Grant?
Nothing, thank you.
Trish? Mary? Nothing? We'll be going into closed session. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Before we go off the record, just so the record is clear for the public's information, we're going into closed session pursuant to MCLA 15.628 to consider and hear an evaluation of employee who has requested in writing that we do so in closed session. Additionally, we're doing it under MCLA 15.628H, which is to discuss a written opinion subject to attorney-client privilege. Thank you.
And there will be no action when we come out? Okay.
No. There will be no action taken after we come out.